Welcome to Lead Like Lions, the podcast designed for men who aspire to lead with purpose, faith, and courage. Together we'll learn how to balance strength and humility, courage and compassion as we prepare ourselves to live out our faith authentically. My name is Philip.
My name is Jason. Join us this week as we explore the journey of becoming a lion-hearted leader. Today's episode is The Heart of a Lion, Embracing Courage and Leadership, where we'll discuss how we can understand what it means to have courage and leadership, how to balance strength and humility, and the courageous actions and leadership that we can take. It's important that we talk about courage and leadership because courage isn't just the absence of fear. Although we often see courage as the antithesis of fear, it's often misunderstood because courage doesn't mean not having fear. It means how we place that fear. Now, we understand that men are leading with fear aren't actually leading, but those men are not leading properly. Because when we lead with fear and we push others in fear, we're not actually leading them to anything.
Right.
We're pushing them. And we're often going to get the opposite results that we're looking for. Those examples of, the Red Army soldiers. We literally had soldiers in World War II up on the front lines who didn't have any ammunition. They couldn't even fight. They had no problem charging the enemy because there they had a chance. If they turn around, they were going to die.
Yeah, absolutely.
Charging the front lines without any bullets, that's no way. That's not leadership. That's just compelling in fear. It's like, well, I've got a desire to survive, so I'm just going to charge the enemy.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, where do we put fear in our lives? You talked about it's not the absence of fear when we're leading, but what's taking control of our emotions, taking control of our actions, or are we letting God and his understanding, not our own understanding, like we talked in episode 1, right? We let God lead us. And so once we let God be our leader, then we can start being courageous as a leader ourselves because we're taking that fear and putting it to the back burner and be like, okay, yes, I'm scared because I'm a person. Yeah, oh man, something's really scary, right? Like I'm charging towards the front line with zero ammo. But if someone has that faith that God's there with them, then it's like, okay, I'm trusting you that you know what's next, and I'm trusting you that you're going to get me through this, no matter what it is.
Ooh, so the greater the fear we have, the greater the faith we need to have in God.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you said it best. I mean, like that's going to be a big test in our life. That's going to be a very big test, whether it's your job as a search and rescue operator, a doctor at a hospital where it's like, this is a dangerous surgery, but if I don't do it, this person's going to die. Or even just as simple as, being a teacher. Like, we all have things that scare us, but how much faith do we have? And when is that fear going to take over? And if it takes over, then we obviously have a lack of faith somewhere.
So it's not so much just going recklessly into it. It's not just being abandoned in your leadership. It's about having faith, right? When we feel that fear, how do we use that fear? And do we allow that fear to control us and then propagate that to those we are leading and our teams? Or do we place that properly? And without a faith in Christ, without somewhere to properly put that fear, I think it's impossible to truly lead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, without faith, you cannot lead with courage. Without one, there is not the other.
Right. Compelling people to do stuff out of fear isn't leadership, right? You may get them to do, you may have a position of power, but you're not really leading them to anything. Yeah, think about the story of Joshua in the Bible, right? After the death of Moses, Joshua was called to lead the Israelites into the promised land, right? They were promised the land of Canaan, and God commanded him to be strong and courageous. He actually had to command him 3 different times and remind him, right? You're gonna be fine, but you have to obey me. You have to be courageous when you go forward. And he knew that most importantly, he had to obey God.
Yeah, and he even had to be told 3 times, and that's a chosen man from God. God chose him and said, "Hey, you're in charge now. Moses is gone. This is you, Joshua." And he's still right, and he still had to be told 3 times. He's like, "Well, I don't know, it's pretty nice here. I mean, like, I think I could just relax here for a little bit, right?
Yeah, you can't go into the Bible too far without seeing great examples of guys that are put in positions and it's like, hey, you're going to lead now, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's terrifying. You're like, well, what am I going to do? Right? I'm in this position now. I guess I'm going to have to lead. But there's something key in that, in realizing it's not about our own ability. Leadership is not about being the smartest, being the strongest, as the world has thought, right? I'm going to put my
Right.
strongest, biggest guy out there. It's about having humility and being able to serve.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Some of my best leaders weren't the fastest runners or the
No.
best at the job or anything, but they made sure that we could get the job done. They took care of us.
Yeah.
There was a lot of sacrifice in that. They were just some of the best leaders I had. They just actually cared. And it
Yeah.
was more than just caring about themselves and their leadership
Right.
progression. And so they were taking care of us. I think one of the biggest examples we can see is David versus the Goliath.
Come on now.
Right?
First Samuel chapter 17, verses 32 to 37. Let's read that out here. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep sheep for his father, and when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. And David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine.
Ooh, that just gives me chills right there,
And
right?
Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you.
Ooh, right? That's a powerful story right there. I remember that in like vacation Bible school, like before pre-K
Yeah.
down here in the South. Man, everyone like knows that story. And that gives me chills every time I hear it. I love that story.
It wasn't his ability.
No, not at all. No.
It wasn't the fact that he had no fear. It was the fact that you could clearly see his fear was in the Lord, and he took care of his flock and cared so much about him. And this guy was going up against lions. He's going up against bears. He don't care.
Yeah, and he's not a big guy either. He's not a
You're
big
just
guy
a child,
either.
bro.
Yeah.
It's like this guy's been eating babies bigger than you, right? Like he's been a warrior. He's been killing other men since he was a child. You're just a child, bro. You don't need to go up against this guy.
Yeah, you're a snack on the charcuterie board, right?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, with that faith, and when you lead with that faith, when you lead with that courage built on a foundation of faith, it really just strengthens your resolve.
Absolutely.
You know your direction. You know that this is meant to
You're not
be.
wishy-washy.
No, you're like, oh, okay. I understand you. Let's do this. And you heard David. He's like, he went against the army of the living God. And he's like, don't care. Let's do it. There was no question about it.
Leadership's not easy. There's nothing easy about it. But you have to have resolve, right? You can't just be in a position where you're constantly causing to question your own decisions, or you want other people to keep questioning your decisions, right?
Yeah.
Where are you placing your faith?
Yeah. I mean, both of our jobs, you couldn't be questioned. You know, you as aviation and me as an air traffic controller. If we started questioning, like if we started making people question us, we couldn't be doing our jobs. We couldn't be doing our jobs.
Trust in what the end result is.
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
to believe in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Right? If you don't believe in what you're doing, if you don't have a purpose and you don't have direction, you don't have clarity, you cannot lead, because with that comes that peace, right? You have to understand this is where I'm leading them. Without all those things, you're like, if you don't have a purpose and direction, you're like, hey guys, follow me. Follow me where? Where are we going?
Yeah.
What are we doing? You know?
Right. Okay, Lieutenant, get us lost in the woods right now.
Come on, guy.
Come on, brand new Lieutenant.
Let's do this.
Yeah, we want to take away our understanding from it. We want to take away our will from it, because once we understand what the Lord's will is for us, it builds that foundation, and we can just continue to just grow and grow and grow, which continues to grow that faith, which continues to grow that courage, which continues to build that leadership.
And here's the thing. As we're building that leadership, as we're experiencing courage, right? There comes with that pride. There comes with that position. We are prone to it. As we are put in those positions of authority, we have greater responsibilities, but we also tend to evaluate ourselves higher. We tend to start building pride. We're humans. We're prone to it, right? The biggest challenge for people that get into leadership positions is maintaining humility. And it's a very dangerous thing. In fact, throughout history, General Petraeus, as I was coming up, right? This guy was a rock star. This guy was everybody liked him. He was just a mastermind, everything else. And then there he is. He gets caught with like Bradwell or the writer and the reporter, and this big scandal. I mean, his wife spoke at my commencement ceremony.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, great leaders fall hard. Even as we just discussed with King David, the shepherd.
Yeah, right.
Right? Man. So David was my favorite character growing up. I'm like, man, David and beat Goliath and give me a sling and go take me down some giants. Then I started reading. I was like, oh, what's going on in 2 Samuel, right? Start reading a little bit about what he did with Bathsheba. Like, dude, bro.
Yeah, no one tells you that as a kid. You're like, oh man, David's so cool. And then you're like, wait a minute, David also fell like the rest of every man on this earth.
Yes.
Right? And once we understand that we will fail, but we understand where that failure is going to come from, we can grow that understanding, and we can know that we're not going to have all the answers, and that we're just going to have to learn as we go. I mean,
it's tempting. Like, hey, I've got this all figured out. I got this, guys. No, stay rooted in the truth. Stay rooted in the promise of God. Stay in abiding in Him, and He will make your way.
Yes.
Once you step outside of that, there goes your purpose. There goes your direction. And yes, you may have things figured out. You may be very successful. Be careful. That's when you get lost, and you get lost big time. That's when you start making some big mistakes and there's no turning back.
Yeah, that's when you're serving yourself at that point.
Right.
And a true leader, a great leader, is someone who is there to serve.
Come on.
To be of service,
That's
not to be served. And if you have a leader like that in your life, wherever you are in your job, understand that leader is serving himself. He's serving his pockets. He's serving his hedonic ways that only build himself. But we can look at Jesus and look at how he perfectly embodies service.
And these poor leaders, right? They wonder, why don't my guys sacrifice themselves? Why don't my employees sacrifice themselves for me? As a military officer, like, why aren't my guys just charging the battlefield, And it's like, would you lay down your life for them?
Absolutely.
What are you doing for them? Why are they going to lay down their lives for you?
Yeah, you're making 5 times as much as me. You're off twice as much as me, and you're just like, well, you just gotta keep pushing through. And then they get mad when you don't push through, and you're like, hey, I'm at my wit's end. Like, I need like a 2-hour break. Whatever it is. So I mean, that happens throughout every part of society. Yeah. But like, again, we look at Jesus, and he washed the feet of his disciples. Right,
man.
He came in the perfect leadership position. There was literally no one above him. Everyone else, everyone and everything, every angel, every demon, everything on this earth was below him, was designed to serve him.
In the beginning was the Word.
Right? Yeah. So, the
Word.
You can't really beat the beginning, that's.
And here he is washing my feet.
You're right.
Talk about humility.
That would have been a powerful moment.
I would have been squirming. Like, I think about that moment, and I was like, I would have been squirming, like, God is literally washing my feet right now. This is uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with it. And that, talk about a humbling experience.
Oh, man.
Having God there at your feet. And we're talking about, you got to think of the culture here too, right? We're in Israel 2,000 years ago. So people had sandals, people were barefoot, and it was a big deal. When you come home, you wash off your feet.
Yep.
Right? Your feet were seen as very dirty. They carried all of the dirt and the vile things and the excrement that was all over the ground, because animals were a part of everybody's life. So whoever cleaned your feet, it was a servant. You got God cleaning your feet right now. That's amazing. I want to talk about a servant.
Right. And there's so many symbolic things about that, right? Because they were sitting down, they were relaxing. And in those times too, people who were of higher value, the kings and the royalty, were carried above everyone else.
Yes.
They were on the pedestals. They were in the chariots that were lifted high, right? Being carried by the slaves from town to town. So their feet didn't have to touch the ground. But these were humble men. They were fishers, right? They were just regular old fishermen doing their job. Dirty feet, right? I mean, you got that salt water on that feet.
Right there.
Yeah.
Washing their feet.
That's a powerful thing, man.
That's leadership.
Yeah. He went into the absolute most humble position on his knees, serving these men to clean where they walked, what they walked with. And that,
if you're ever wondering what you should do in leadership, you've ever in a position man, what do I do? How do I, what do I do forward? Note that to be courageous in leadership, you have to shed what people think of you, right? People may not always agree with you. That same dinner is like, hey, by the way, in order to have your life, you need to lose it, right? So he's trying to teach these guys. They're like, no, I don't like that, right? What about the king that's coming?
Yeah, look at the baptism
on the war horse.
Yeah, look at the baptism. He's like, John's like, no. We're supposed to be baptized by you. Like, I shouldn't be baptizing you. It's like, whoa. They're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? He's totally taken the exact opposite step of all the kings and the rulers and the dictators of that time. He totally took a step back, and he led by example.
Yeah.
And, if your boss is like, hey, can you take out the trash? And he's not even ever willing to take out the trash. I mean, that's a simple thing, but it's like he thinks you're lower than him. He's like, you're lower.
If you're worrying about position, you're not in a position to be a leader.
Yeah.
If you're worried about your position, you're not in a position to be a leader. And that sums it up. When it comes down to it, to be courageous in leadership, you can't worry about all those other things. Stay focused on what's true, stay focused on what's right, and absolutely 100% focus in on Christ.
Absolutely. That's the biggest thing. Just focus in on Christ.
All right. Let's get into those steps of what can we do to be courageous in leadership. And you kind of talked about it. You said.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah. So the first thing is leading by example, right?
Absolutely.
You got to start by leading by example, right?
Yeah.
Again, if I tell you to take out the trash and I'm not willing to do that, I think you're lower than me.
Let me give you guys a little bit of background here. When you're in the military, your leader has more control than a civilian leader, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That leader that's in charge of you, they are judge, jury, executioner, IRS, Department of State, police department, right? Then your leader and the whole government, they're pretty much everything. Your commander and your leaders, they have UCMJ.
Yeah.
Uniform Code of Military Justice. They control your life. They control when you eat. They control when you sleep. They control your pay. If they don't like what you did, they can take your pay away.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can make you work whatever hours they might want you to work. They can send you to go die. They control your life.
Yeah. And for those of you not in the military, we talked about it before, but we were both in the military, and there's so many different aspects because they can control from your pay to your sleep to what you do.
Everything.
And that person isn't going to be like a 30 or a 40-year-old manager who's over you, like all your other jobs that you would think of. I've had leaders that were younger than me.
Younger than you.
Yeah, exactly. They had a different position. They were smarter than me. But then I've also been in that position as an E3 where I was teaching E7s and E8s, almost the top enlisted ranks before you become an officer. And it's that balance of it where there's a whole lot of differences from the civilian side to the military side.
Right.
So, I mean, also we lead into the fostering of communication, right?
Got to have communication.
Right. So
Right.
when we have communication that is only one-sided, it's a biography at that point. It's just, it's one-sided, right? So communication has to be two-sided.
And encourage it, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like understand that
Not
if you
just
say
let
something
people,
that I don't like, right? I still got to understand that you got a viewpoint, right?
yeah, don't
So
bully me like you just did, right?
right. That's stupid to say, right? And how we respond and like, and taking ownership over the conversation and encouraging people to come out with their ideas. It's not just like, there's no stupid question. Well, there can be stupid questions, but at the end of the day, there is no greater opportunity than to lead by example and to foster trust than by listening to those you're leading.
Yeah. And I think if you're getting a stupid question, that also speaks on you of how little you're training them, right? If you start getting just out of the wall, just off the wall questions, and you're like, where did that even come from? It's like, all right, you're in a lack of leadership because these people have not been trained at all.
And stand firm in your values.
Yeah.
Right? Stand firm in your values. Know who you are. Know what you stand for. And do not compromise that. It's called integrity. All right? It means do what you're supposed to be doing at all times. Stand firm in that. Do not give that up. Do not jeopardize that for any reason. In position of leadership, you're not in a position to do that. If you don't know what your values are, you're not a leader.
And I think if you have those values rooted in earth, they're going to crumble very quickly.
They're going to crumble.
They're going to crumble very quickly. So you have to have it in faith. You have to build that off of faith, and you have to go further into that and be like, all right, what does God want me to do for the people below me?
Come on.
And the first thing it's going to be is you better take a step back, and you better put yourself last. You better put yourself behind these people and serve them, even though they are serving you in a position. Take a step back and you start serving them before you can do anything as a leader.
Right? You can't be courageous if you're always suppressing the courage around you. Yep. You're always stifling that, right?
You can only be a follower. You can only be a follower. Be quiet, right? And that's not good at all. I mean, if someone is ready to step into a role of a leader and being courageous, and you have already hopefully led them in the right way, why not? Right? That takes some weight off of you. You know, we share each other's burdens as Christians, and we want to help each other. And if someone's like, "Hey, let me help you in this difficult time," you've told me some crazy scenarios where you've been called over the phone to help some people out because of some things going on with their family. And that's awesome because you weren't in a leadership position at that time, but you are stepping up into that. You are supporting those people in a courageous position, and that takes the weight off of them. It helps them balance the stress because it is stressful being a leader. I mean, you've been in a leadership position longer than I have, and it's stressful, right?
And we'll put it this way: your subordinates, your teams, they will emulate what you celebrate. They will emulate what you celebrate. What are you rewarding, right? If you're rewarding bad behavior, you're going to get bad behavior. If you're putting everybody down and yelling at them for taking initiative and coming up with ideas, then you're like, why aren't you guys taking initiative? So reward being courageous and know that you're going to have to bite the bullet on that, and you're going to have to shield them because it's risky. Being courageous is risky.
Yeah.
You got to be able to accept that risk to be able to do that. And that leads us to the last courageous action in leadership.
It's just seeking guidance through prayer.
Amen.
We talked earlier, you're not going to know everything. You got to balance that humility. So when you don't understand, instead of going back and trying to rely on your own understandings, let's rely on what Jesus has for us.
Come on.
And Jesus has the answer. He is the answer. He's the only way.
It's the way,
the truth,
and the life.
Let's go. Right?
In fact, no man gets to the Father except through him.
Right.
Right?
So if you want to know the way to go, you want to know the right path, you want to make sure you're not leading your men down a wrong direction, down the wrong path, just look towards Jesus.
You got a direct line to the greatest leader. You got a direct line to the creator of the heavens and the earth, creator of us.
Yep.
Why not use it?
Yeah. No going through HR, just going straight to the Bible, straight to the Word, and open it up. And then all you got to do is take a quick Google search. I'm having issues with this. What does the Bible say? Right?
Take a look at the Bible. And
and it will lead you right to that.
It says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. When we first look to him and his kingdom, his righteousness, obeying and abiding, then it's easier for us to step out. We're going to be better leaders. We're going to have a better focus and a better purpose. And it brings that element of humility. It's hard. We can call ourselves humble. I'm the humblest person I know, right? We can call ourselves that, but it's hard to be humble in a position of leadership if we don't seek out that guidance. Have your mentors, have those people you call up, right? You're going to need that. Your number one phone call needs to be to Christ. Pick up the phone, get on your knees, lift up your eyes, bow your head, however you want to do it. Reach out to the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. As we conclude today's episode, I challenge you to identify one area in your life where you can demonstrate courage this week. Maybe it's engaging in a difficult conversation, advocating for somebody who can't advocate for themselves, or making a decision grounded in your faith. Pray about it, reach out, think about what you can do to be courageous in your life. Thanks for joining us in today's episode of Lead Like Lions as we explored embracing courage in leadership.
If you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to subscribe and review our podcast. Connect with us on Instagram at lead.like.lions or on Facebook at Lead Like Podcast. Your feedback helps us reach more men who are ready to step into their calling.
Join us next week as we dive into embracing masculinity, strength, and vulnerability. And as always, lead with passion, live with purpose, and serve with courage.